Today on Biblical Higher Ed Talk, I sit down with April Jones, founder and CEO of Storehouse Wellness, a Christian-based company focused on living healthy and healed the way Christ intended for it to be. We talk about the importance of engaging students in their own health journeys. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm your host, Philip Dearborn, president of the Association for Biblical Higher Education, and honored to have as our guest this week somebody that we've just met recently. It's April Jones. She's the founder and CEO of Storehouse Wellness. We're going to learn a little bit about what Storehouse Wellness is, April's journey to even starting this company, and the work that she's doing in the space of comprehensive health. It's one of those topics that I think we all want to be healthy, or at least strive to be healthy. And the thing I love about what April is doing is actually putting some accountability measures and resources around what it actually means to be healthy. So Storehouse Wellness, it's a Christian company that is focused on the health of the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. So we're going to be talking about what she's doing, and potentially this could be a help for some of our member institutions as they engage in making sure that their students, their faculty, their staff are living healthy lives. So welcome to the show, April.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into the resources that you provide and the things that you do here in a moment, but you stepped out, you started a company, Storehouse Wellness. So pull back the curtain a little bit on what was the journey leading up to starting this?
When I started my career in healthcare, it was in pharmacy. And I would have not believed you if you told me 20 years later that I would really be practicing in the way that I am, which is helping people take control of their wellness journey and not just enabling them to take their medications well and, to really adhere to that, but to figure out how to incorporate true wellness in a way that gets them off of their medications, really de-prescribing in a lot of ways. So I have been very thankful for the experiences that I've had in healthcare. I've worked in healthcare leadership, pharmacy practice management, and then was recruited into industry and worked as a medical expert in oncology, and then served as a national director working with healthcare coalitions across the country and self-funded employers. And it was during that time that I actually had decided to go to ministry school. I just published my book not long before then on overcoming adversity in a faith-based way. Decided I just wanted to continue my spiritual growth journey and enrolled at Bethel. And so I was doing BSSM online. And it was during that time I really felt God pulling pieces together for me, giving me the desire that everything that I do should have kingdom impact, that all of the experiences and education that I'd received would not be wasted in that. And what I really felt called to do is help people really truly be well. And I knew that in order to do that, that we had to bring Jesus to the center of that journey. And we had to bring them tools and resources that were both credible and also integrated in a way that they would not be overwhelmed. And that's kind of how Storehouse Wellness was born.
Wow. Wow. So how many years have you had the company?
Early spring of last year. So we're a
Okay.
little over a year old.
Yeah.
And God really just accelerated our growth. Really, if you think about the way that He does, is oftentimes every experience that you feel like you had, planted a seed that maybe didn't harvest, He was using that experience in a way that you could use it later for repurpose it for another way. And so much of what we've done at Storehouse, really, because we were able to grow and build quickly, was because of those unique niche experiences where He used us in ministry or education or different ways. And we were able to really repurpose those learnings into a way that allowed us to build a foundation quite quickly and really get ourselves out there. And it's been a blessing
Wow.
every step of the way.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that story, because we believe in the sovereignty of God, that God has a plan for our lives and He's working it out. And I loved your first comment that you made, that if you had fast forwarded to today and you doing what you're doing and starting a business, if somebody had told you that, when you were doing the pharmacy thing, you'd be like, wait, what? But yet God has provided for you those steps in that journey to kind of come to this point. And like you said, all of those elements have contributed to the work that you're doing right now. What's it like starting a business? Are there roadblocks? Are there uncertainties when you step out into that space? What goes through your mind?
Coming from healthcare, I've always dabbled in different things in terms of businesses that I felt like, or ideas that I had. For example, when I published my book, I decided to kind of form my own publishing brand and help other authors publish as well. I wanted the credibility of a professional publishing company, but I also wanted to own the process and the outcome of my book and not share rights with anyone else. So I think that I have kind of had a toe in the water of entrepreneurship along the way, but it always came with kind of the anchor of safety to a foundation of a salary or a paycheck from another organization of just, showing up and doing my due diligence in my 9 to 5. And I really have found, I think, a new perspective and appreciation for both the entrepreneur journey and the ministry journey. As I think about so many people in full time nonprofit work where they form their own nonprofit organization because they felt called to a particular purpose. I'm really in awe of the fact that how many people I know that have been in my life that have been doing that for so long never share a lot about the strife that comes with and the heavy burden of not knowing where the next amount of provision is coming from, except for by the grace of God. And it is not easy. It's stretching and growing. And I don't think people really tell you that in the beginning. They're just like, oh, it's a small business. There's opportunities. Like there are grants and there are loans and things, but they're actually a lot harder to come by than you would think. And you're constantly being, there's spiritual warfare too when you're mission driven, where the enemy is telling you this is not going to work. This is just your idea. This is just your dream. Why do you think that this is going to be successful? You don't have the right experience. Like there's imposter syndrome and all these things that really try to attack you. And I think that I was really surprised by that. I consider myself to be a strong and resilient and independent person, but it's not easy. It's really not easy. However, every day God is gracious to confirm that, whether it's an introduction or whether it's someone giving positive affirmation and speaking into something you've been praying about or that you've been reading in the word, like constantly you see God in the details of things to help you to continue to have joy in the journey and persevere. And you can think of it as doing really a new adventure with Him. Our chaplain at Storehouse Wellness said to me early on, it was May of last year, and I was at kind of our first conference. And I said, Anthony, I feel so much responsibility, not just for the success of this for me, but for everyone who's trusting us and partnering with us to see Storehouse succeed because we want to bring wellness to the kingdom. And he said to me, like, God did not ask you to do this for him. He asked you to do this with him. And that has been an anchor statement for me for
Yeah.
this entire last year. And it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, kudos to you for stepping out in faith and doing it. It's one thing, like you said, to dabble in different areas while you have a full-time job, your dependence on a salary and benefits and all of that. But to actually step into it is a big step of faith. And I hope it's an encouragement to our listeners, whatever. I'm not, our people aren't necessarily, maybe some of them are starting businesses, but maybe they're in context in higher education and they just need that nudge to take that step and realize that, look, at the end of the day, this is not yours. This is God's. God has called you to do this and to take that step of faith and realize that He's leading you to that point, not to abandon you, but to actually take you through that process. Like you said, almost on a daily basis, He reminds you that this is what He created you to do. And does that mean all the hard stuff goes away? Absolutely not. That is definitely there. And you wade into that, but you recognize that He's with you in that process. So thank you for sharing a little bit about that experience. Your focus is on the health of the whole person, mind, body, spirit. Give us a high level summary of your approach as you seek comprehensive health and healing. How does Storehouse accomplish that?
Really, in two ways. One is changing the mindset around wellness and understanding that God really intends for us to live fully well. And He's provided the resources that we need to do that, really. It's about educating ourselves. I also think about it kind of the same way as salvation, right? Like we have the Bible, we have this tool to connect with the Lord. And, if you don't do that, it's really a wasted resource, right? So the more that we know Him, the more that we know the Word, the more that we can utilize it in our life. And I think that the tools and resources around good wellness strategy is very much the same. If we have to kind of roll our sleeves up and really digest the education to understand what is good for us and be intentional about that. I like to say we're changing the why behind wellness. I want people to see themselves as valuable and created with purpose, and that we should be intentional in all of these different areas in our life, not just so that we can perform for the Lord in our calling, but because He loves us and we should love ourselves because of that. We have value. The more conversations that I have, the more partners that we work with, the more I understand that there's a healing that has to happen on the inside to some extent. We have to recognize that value in ourselves. We have to prepare ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually to see ourselves as valuable, of being intentional and being strong in those areas to make substitutions that matter, because everything else is so much harder unless we do that first, right? So our hope is that when you experience wellness resources within the Storehouse platform, whether you're calling the 24/7 chaplain line or engaging with the wellness navigator or just consuming independently the resources that we have in our app to make things easier for you, like what to substitute, and now you have recipes and pre-recorded cooking classes, devotion baked into your workouts or what have you. It's not just about the action that you take that gets an outcome, but it's about really acknowledging like that it's a healing journey, and
Yeah.
that the things that we do make a difference in the outcome, but they also make a difference to God.
Yeah, yeah. And it's deeply personal too, the space that you're in. When you think about health, obviously there are things that people can see about your health, right? When we interact with people, we have different ways to measure people's health. And sometimes, you come across people who aren't healthy, but there's so much more deeper than just what we see. Like you say, it's mind, body, spirit. And I went through my own journey of health and I used a tool called Noom. I wish this had been around back then, but certainly not a Christian context, but it gets to the why of why do you make the choices that you do. So let's not focus on necessarily what those choices are, but let's get to the why of it. And when we experience stress, when we experience hardship, it often impacts our health because then we make poor choices about what we eat, poor choices about exercise. And in that particular platform, it was kind of rewiring the why, but not from a Christian perspective. And I like how you have incorporated that into it because we have a responsibility, don't we? I mean, we are created in the image of God. We're God's children. So the stakes are perhaps a little bit higher. So speak to that piece of it. The stakes are higher for us because we are Christ followers. Our bodies are temples.
When we think about probably one of the bigger inhibitors of people to actually deal with the actions, it has to do with acknowledgement, to say, and a lot of times the acknowledgement of the fact that you've been doing things wrong up until this point in a way that has made you unhealthy or made you have significant debt or dealt with the stress that you have from a mental perspective. One of the things that we have to cope with is the fact that, like, if our actions got us here, then there's regret, there's shame, we have to forgive ourselves, and those are big feelings and big things to deal with. The interesting thing is that even though there's more responsibility as a Christian to say we do have a calling and we do have a purpose and we have to be accountable to the Lord, we have the tool then to invite the Lord in to heal those feelings and perspectives that we have that are inhibiting us to move forward in a positive way. And I think that's a luxury that not everyone has. I think the non-believer doesn't understand that that is readily accessible to them the way that we do, that's actually a very empowering thing to have in our toolbox.
Yeah, and to get on the other side of it, and that's what I experienced in my own personal journey, and I'm sure you have client testimonies of where your resources have helped individuals, and maybe you can share one of those. But for me personally, when you get on the other side of that and get into a healthy mindset and you understand the why and you understand the triggers of the choices that we make and the bad choices that we make and proactively working through those, when you are in a period of health and reflect back, it's like, oh my goodness, I am so glad I'm on this side of it. And your perspective is so clear, and you realize how you were lulled into bad patterns and you didn't even realize it, right? Until you start asking some of those hard why questions. And man, physically, you just feel so much better, and mentally, you feel so much better, and spiritually. And it really affects everything that you do. Give us top of mind testimony of somebody that you've worked with that you're like, man, that's a great success story.
A lot of times we can feel so isolated in our wellness journey, right?
Yeah.
Like it is, to your point, very personal to us. From the very beginning, I knew that we can equip people with all the resources that they need, but some people need a partner in their wellness journey. The statistics are even out, of course, outside of the faith-based space, and even just outside of the wellness space, shows that when you have an accountability partner, that you will be more successful statistically. So one of the testimonies that have really spoke to my heart was that one of our first company clients, the leader there of, their HR team and everything, actually took the step of vulnerability and scheduled with one of our wellness navigators. And she said she was really kind of scared that it would be like an awkward experience, but that having someone to listen to her and just give her encouragement and affirm her in her journey and be so kind and even willing to pray with her was actually an incredible experience. And so the outcome is what happens with the intentionality, right? Of being able to think about these things every single day and make the right choices. You start to see that it's not work. When it aligns with your character and who you are, the outcomes come. But to be able to appreciate the growth that you have in the day to day along the journey and to share that with someone else, I think is really a beautiful thing.
Yeah. We live in a perplexing time where we're bombarded, first of all, through social media on every aspect of our living and our feeds. Algorithms know what to send our way so that we get even further addicted into paying attention to those things. So on one hand, like, you see a lot about health and the choices that we make and diet plans and intermittent fasting and exercise plans, and just a lot is coming our way. And on the other hand, we're also seeing all kinds of unhealthy triggers around us. What's your take on all of that? The reality that we face that's just coming our way, both the healthy side, but then also the triggers on the other side.
This is a really great question. And it's something that I actually do enjoy talking about because I think that the perspective that I have is that it's kind of like when you decide to be a Christian and you truly start to know the Lord. The things that we thought before were actually sacrifices that we have to make is really substituting for something better. And I think we can think about that in our wellness journey as well. We think, oh, we have to give up the soda or the desserts or whatever, right? Or, oh, we have to, the time that I would have been spending like lounging around and watching Netflix, I really need to plan workouts. And that sounds like a lot of work, or, do meal planning and all these things. And what you realize is that you're trading those things that you thought were luxuries and conveniences for things that nourish your body, your mind, your spirit. When you start to turn off the flow of toxicity into your environment and you start to nourish it with things that actually are positive and godly, you realize that you don't desire those other things anymore. So even though there's a switch that has to happen, it's almost like turning on a light in the room. Like you've been navigating around in the dark and you think that that's normal and that's fine. But once you just fully live in the light, you realize how much better it is, and you don't want to go back to turning the light off, right? So that's my hope in that, like, that's what we try to build, is like content that nourishes and also makes it easy to make those substitutions that help them feel better. We have this thing, like a lot of 2-week challenges to it could be 2 weeks to implementing, a new superfood in your diet, 2 weeks to good sleep, 2 weeks to doing something that's intentional when it comes to self-care, because it only takes 2 weeks actually for most people to heal their gut. So if we can help you do anything for a short amount of time, you can realize that those substitutions do make a difference, and you can do them. You have the ability to do them and actually see a difference in your life.
Our members are people within biblical higher education, and then other listeners who are in Christian higher education are working with students, 18 to 22-year-olds. What are you seeing as far as positive health trends? And then on the other side, what are you seeing as far as negative health trends?
The college community is very close to my heart. One, because I was a college student when I started to experience the first major adversities in my life. I was 19, newly married when I found out I was pregnant, 22, when we found out he had cancer. So it was it was a very interesting and pivotal time in my life where I was trying to figure out how to be a grown up, how to accomplish the goals that I was setting out to do that really set the foundation for the rest of my life, and then dealing with major adversity that I was in no way prepared for. Since the beginning of Storehouse, while we kind of formed as a corporate wellness with the intention of being a corporate wellness company with maybe some downstream avenues for access, the college community has always been very close to my heart. And I knew that at some point we would serve them. It just happened faster than I thought. I also am now a mom of 3 boys, and 2 of them happen to be in that age range. My oldest is 23, my middle is 19. What I'm seeing from being in the same household with these young men is that there is a lot of opportunity for exposure to influence. And it can be bad influence or good influence, but it is readily available. Whereas when I was their age, we weren't really, engaging in social media at that point. That didn't come until I was finishing, like we had MySpace, but really Facebook wasn't a thing until I was finishing pharmacy school. So constant barrage of other opinion and information that may not be positive, that impacts fundamentally their spiritual, mental, and even physical wellness. And then on the flip side of that, they are exposed to other people offering opinions on them. And that can attack our mental wellness. And when our physical health is not at its optimum, it is also, a detriment to their self-confidence and just exposes them in a different way where there's additional vulnerabilities. So, it's so important that we, one, are a positive voice, whether you're a leader in their church, in their community, in their college, in the home. We have to be speaking life and the word of the Lord into them, because it transcends those opinions and really has to plant a truth in their heart of who they are, who God created them to be, and what their purpose is. One of the things that really stands out to me is that in the moment, adversity seems so big. Whatever's happening in your moment, whether it's a health issue, whether it is a relationship issue, or even just like bad events, right? Like you trying to figure out what you want to do with your life or a job, whatever is going on in the moment feels like the biggest possible thing. And I think that they don't have that perspective at that time, that those circumstances are very temporary
Yeah.
and God is permanent. And
Mm.
so, if His sovereignty can be the foundation that we build on, being able to teach them that and helping them build resilience as early as possible is really foundationally fundamental.
Yeah. And that intersection of working in that population, offer your own personal story and journey, but then also the services that you provide. What a critical time in that 18 to 22-year-old range where there's not a whole lot of certainty and deeply influenced by whichever wind is coming their way. to be able to have some structure on issues of health. It's an obvious reason why that age group struggles so much with mental health, because they just cannot absorb all of that and be able to make all of the right decisions. And that's where you can provide a service. So believe it or not, we're coming to the end here. So we've got like 3 minutes left on the show. So in those 3 minutes, Storehouse Wellness, you have a program that you have. Tell our listeners about how you approach, especially within this generation of the 18 to 22-year-olds, what are the services that Storehouse provides?
So we're so excited that the first college is going to be embarking on
Right.
their campus ministry of wellness. We are proud to offer a corporate wellness package for leaders who are serving these individuals and just training them up. That's so important for us adults to have comprehensive wellness, but it's also important for the students. And so we really equip those colleges to bring small group wellness and give them an option to the doom scroll in their phone as well, so that there's positive content that they can plug into. We have everything for those college students that for the adults in terms of equipping them for total wellness, but we also have what we're really proud to offer as college specific content as well, created by our college content team. So they're help from individuals that are just like them in their 20s, that are sharing about how they have skincare regimen that is nourishing their face, talking about body issues and self-confidence, plugging them into Christian music that's not boring, that they're going to love, and talking about identity in Christ and identifying how to relate to the Lord and build that relationship early. So we are just very excited to bring this to the college communities, and we make it in a way that is really affordable, and we really train your staff how to implement it well. It comes with a planner for the whole year that allows small group experience across all four of our pillars: nourishment, physical fitness, mental wellness, and financial health, to really equip them to start to build resilience and healthy habits and strategy early.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful tool, and another way that colleges can partner with, and sure, you can do it on your own and try to figure those out. But here's a great tool that we don't all have the margin to be able to do everything that we want to with students in the student development area. And here's a powerful tool that can come alongside and fill in the holes with what happens on our college campuses. And so really appreciate your work. April, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate what you're doing, and glad that you were able to join us for the show.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. I appreciate your support.
You bet. And if you'd like more information about Storehouse Wellness, in the show description, you'll see a link to their website. And again, they do corporate wellness, but then also student wellness for your campus. And I also, the book that you wrote back in 2019, No Mess, No Message, we went ahead and put a link in the show description over to Amazon. And you can also get it on Audible and all of the other platforms if you want to listen to it. That's April's book that she wrote back a couple of years ago. So until next time, stay kingdom focused.
The Biblical Higher Ed Talk podcast is proud to be a part of the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast Network. Discover even more conversations, resources, and tools to help you grow your institution at thehigheredmarketer.com, your go-to community for all things higher ed marketing and leadership.